Now, this is where it goes wrong. So in order to fix this, we have to understand what is the problem. So a lot of what we're going to see in the dip is kicking in the wrong direction. So if you notice, you're going to see this a lot. So athletes come down to the bottom and they kip and then they end up in this arching position. The problem is this. When they're down at the bottom, they're pulling their knees up, kicking down, and then trying to press up. Therefore, we're creating momentum in the wrong direction. All right, guys, welcome back to Jerk Block Talk. I'm Jason Fernandez. We're here at Crossfit Rife, and we're going to talk a little bit today about something that I see a lot at all levels of athlete, all the way up from the elite levels of athlete, all the way down to our basic level athletes, probably the majority of the people that are going to come in your gym, and that is the ring dip or just the dip in general. And we're going to show you a couple different things about how we warm up for it, just a little progression on which to get yourself to the dip, and then how to teach the kipping dip correctly, because that is where 9 out of 10 times this is going to go wrong. So we're going to run you through a quick progression and show you how to work your way up to eventually getting up here on the rings. And we'll cover that. And you can do this in your class. You can add stuff to it. We're not going to cover any mobility within this video. If you want to do some stretching and stuff like that, that's fine. Primarily what we're going to talk about is like getting the shoulders, triceps, chest ready to do some in the dip. So first thing, I'm really a big fan of this drill. Just give everybody in the class a 10-pound plate, and all of the reps here we're going to do is just 10 reps. So first thing we're going to do is just 10 presses out in front, kind of like a bench press. Once we're there, the plate needs to be here, kind of like you had a plate of food, and then we're going to press up overhead for 10 reps. This is going to kind of show you some things about those people that kind of struggle in the overhead position. 10 steering wheels, this one, just to get the shoulders a little bit more loose. And then 10 around the world, and this one's really good for the shoulder and the scap, just to get those loosened up. And we'll do 10 reps at each one of those positions, and for around the world, and then 10 right. Once we've done that, we're going to start this whole progression on the floor. So the first thing we're going to do on the floor is we're just going to have everybody lay down, and they're going to be kind of in what we call like a sphinx position. So elbows should be stacked right underneath the shoulders with your palms out in front. Big wide hands, just like we would if we were doing handstand push-ups. And then from here, you're gonna have folks get into a plank position, pull their hips up. And all we're doing here is I'm just gonna replace my elbow with my hand. So I'm gonna bring that hand back and this hand back. And now I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna go elbow where my hand was, elbow where my hand was. And I'm just gonna go back and forth through that progression. We'll do 10, maybe 15 of those as we go through. Once we're done with that, then we're going to work a little bit more on the pressing and the pulling, and this carries over not just to the ring dip, but also to the muscle up, because this is where we get to practice pulling through. So this is a modified position from where we were before. You're going to take your hands and you're going to pull them as far back as you can, but not so much that the elbows or the forearms will come off of the floor. Now from here, you want people again to get all of their weight on their forearms. And then from here, we're just going to transition, push forward, press up, back down, and then back onto the forearms. Have people use their feet when they do this. A lot of your folks are going to struggle with this movement when they first start it, but it's a really good warm-up in order to practice the transition as well. Once we've got that, now we're going to start making our way up to the dip or the straight bar or the rings. Now for this first progression, we've got 5 pairs of straight bars, the Matadors from Rogue. You don't need these for this first part of the progression. You can use a series of boxes to make this happen. So all we're going to start doing is having people go through that range of motion dip, but allowing them to use their legs. So the easiest scale for this would be to have them have their feet directly underneath their hips. Just squat down, and again, what we're looking for in the bottom is shoulder below the elbow when we go through range of motion. And then just have them use their legs in order to do that. Just going through that range of motion. Now, just like we would scale up on the muscle up, I'm just going to have them walk their feet out until we can get to the same range of motion, but using as little of the the legs as possible. If they can do this, now we're ready to go to a little bit higher set of straight bars. And I really want to see people do it here before we put them in this frictionless plane that is the rings. Now, once they can do that, I'm just going to test them for a strict ring dip first. I really would prefer to see strict movement before I start adding any sort of kipping motion into it. Again, I'll have them get up onto the bar, again, shoulder below the elbow, and then locked out from there. Once they have that, now I can start introducing some of the kipping motion. Now, this is where it goes wrong. So in order to fix this, we have to understand what is the problem. So a lot of what we're going to see in the dip is kicking in the wrong direction. So if you notice, you're going to see this a lot. So athletes come down to the bottom and they kip and then they end up in this arching position. The problem is this. When they're down at the bottom, they're pulling their knees up, kicking down, and then trying to press up. Therefore, we're creating momentum in the wrong direction. We need to be getting our momentum moving in the upward direction, just like we would if we were doing kipping pull-ups. So here's the number one problem that I see with this. The rings or the bar are set at the wrong height. If this dip bar was lower, I would be forced. So imagine this was lower. At the bottom, I wouldn't be able to have my hip extended and the knee extended at the bottom. If they can't be at the bottom of that position in an extended position, it's going to be really hard for them to kip out of this position because the hip is already flexed. And then when we do the kip, we want to go from flexion to extension in that order in order to get that upward momentum. So first things, bring this up, whether it's a straight bar or ring dips, so that when they're at the bottom of the dip, they're fully extended. Once you have that, now you can is just having them pull their knees up and holding it in the dip. So when done correctly, it would look like this. But most of them will get the timing. So we're not going to extend the hip and the knee on this. I'm just going to have them pull the legs up and then press, but we're going to stay in this tucked position. It'll be here. Once they can demonstrate that, now we can have them start to reset the legs to get that full kip. And then once you have that, now we can go in here and we can get into the rings. Again, notice that these are set up probably higher than you would have them set up in your gym. Just to make sure, if you put these in the pull-up rig, that there's enough clearance overhead so that when your athletes are locked out, they're not going to smack themselves in the head. But from here, the progression is the same. I just want to make sure that they can get to the bottom, fully extended, kip up, stay in that tucked position. Once they can get that, then we can start cycling the kipping dip. So it's just something I see a lot of, particularly in the females. They just kick in position, and it's not really helping their position or helping them get that upward momentum that we want to see in the ring dip. So try it out. If you like it, great, use it. If you don't, feel free to put some feedback in there on things that you do. Start it on the floor. Start with some stuff that doesn't require them to use all of their body weight. Then slowly work them from a lower dip position into a higher position. Remember, the key here is they need to be fully extended at the bottom of the dip, or it's going to be really hard to teach that action of the hip. Once we're good on this static plane, now we can go to a dynamic plane or this frictionless plane, the rings. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you like this content, please subscribe. Next, thanks.